So today is hopefully going to allow people the opportunity to understand that it's in every breath, it's in every choice, it's in every smile, it's in every movement, and it's in every bite. Or whatever they're doing. It doesn't have to be sitting cross-legged with incense, with pants doing chants.
You're listening to Becoming Wildly Resilient, brought to you by University of Kentucky Human Resources, Health and Wellness. In this series, we'll explore a variety of well-being topics with experts from the university community in physical, emotional, nutritional, and financial health. Join us, and together we'll discover how we can thrive at work, home, and beyond. Welcome to another episode of Becoming Wildly Resilient. I'm your host, Jakob Hester, and returning to the podcast with me today is Jackie Carroll. She's the health coach with UK HR Health and Wellness, and is a certified health and wellness coach, an ERYT registered yoga teacher, co-room mindfulness instructor, and tobacco cessation specialist. Throughout this episode, we'll be talking about slowing down. Welcome back, Jackie.
Hello. So good to be here.
So our perceptive listeners will notice a name change from your last episode. So since you told us a little bit about yourself in the first episode, maybe tell us a little bit about some of your big life changes along the way, and maybe a moment you've experienced all in the last year.
This is so great. Okay, so what has happened in my life? Well, I completely remodeled a house from a 4-bedroom house to a 6-bedroom house. I got married. I blended 2 families, and have 3 teenagers among 5 kids. So yeah, a lot has been happening, but here's my awe. Throughout all of that, as a parent, and I'm sure all the listeners who are parents, our focus, our main source of joy and peace is around our children. And I have to say, I am in awe of how the kids have just gotten through this whole COVID thing. I honestly can say that my kids seem like they're the happiest they've ever been in a few years. And I think that's my focus. My focus is just the young kids trying to figure out life right now. And then relating, like, how are they doing it to how we as adults can maybe even learn from them.
Yeah, for sure. I think we all need that opportunity to kind of step back and look at the big picture maybe, and also pat ourselves on the back a little bit too. I think it's been tough, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to ask about all instead of just what's going on in your world or what you do, just to kind of recognize those moments that even when it has seemed kind of dark for the last nearly 2 years now, kind of recognizing those positive moments that we've had. So I'll share one as well, actually. We went to San Francisco over the summer, kind of when the pandemic was at its sort of lowest point. We slipped away for a little bit, and in that trip we went to Muir Woods, and we got there pretty early in the morning. We were in that first wave because they were limiting the number of people who were coming through, and so we got in the first time slot, so we were kind of the only people there, and it was really early morning. It was still kind of foggy and damp and cool, and just walking through Muir Woods was like this sort of otherworldly experience to me, and it was just like pure awe to see trees that were as old as they were and as large as they were in an environment that was just so quiet and so peaceful. Was something that you don't get very often, I don't think, or you don't realize very often, or you don't seek out very often. So that was a huge moment of awe for me in the last, let's say, 6 months or so. But yeah, kind of talking about slowing down, I've got a couple reasons really why I wanted to broach this topic. The first, as you know, I'm coming off paternity leave this week. So life has been a little bit more hectic than normal for me. And I'd say that's probably an experience that most parents have. I mean, you've mentioned it and kind of learning from them. But more broadly, I think we're also living in an increasingly fast-paced world, in a demanding world. And not only due to COVID, I think we were kind of heading that way anyways. But I mean, I think we've seen this through our jobs with conversations and observations around campus, particularly groups like healthcare who are still kind of entrenched in the COVID-19 pandemic and still responding to that and having to deal with that. But we've also got other people on campus who are still trying to pivot, and we're constantly still having to do these things. So it kind of feels like there's this continual demand, and there's not really a chance to slow down. And then we also have the holidays coming up, and that's always a time, even in a quote-unquote normal year, where things speed up a little bit more, and it's hard to, again, sort of take it all in and enjoy what's going on around you as well. So those are kind of big reasons why I wanted to jump into this topic. So first off, it sounds rather simplistic, really, just to say, yeah, slow down. But how would you explain what it means to really slow down?
Well, first of all, I think and I'm just going by what I believe to be true about myself and what I've seen in others, is that we are trying to make up for lost time. So we're busy, and we're also trying to do all the things that we couldn't do for the last almost 2 years and fit it in all in the 6 months. And there's been a lot of positive changes with technology and working from home and Zoom and all. And the other side of that is it's really convenient to have back-to-back meetings, to not have any downtime, to not be able to walk to a meeting. So I feel like the whole idea of slowing down is actually a boundary issue too. Slowing down means you don't have to do more. You don't have to strive more. You don't need to prove more. It's just, it's a cycle that we all go through naturally, but it's emphasized to like the nth degree right now because we're struggling and we're trying to make up for lost time. So slowing down means first just being aware that you need to slow down. And it's really difficult when we're so heightened. We're like a freight train. And I even think I've said this before. We're like a freight train. We're going so fast. We're so heavy, and nothing's stopping us. And the only thing that will is some sort of emergency or awakening or very, very clear awareness.
Yeah, the fitting it all back in, that's something that I really didn't consider coming into this episode either. That's really interesting that you bring that up because, I mean, that makes total sense that we couldn't do a lot of things for so long, and now that we have a little bit more of an ability to be able to do those things and we have a little more freedom to do those things and that sort of thing, I think there is that sense of people trying to cram it all back in now, and I think that is sort of increasing that feeling of being on the go all the time, because I think we've acknowledged that with the virtual world particularly, where it is, yes, it's very convenient to pop from meeting to meeting to meeting, but what we've seen is that really loads your days up because you don't have that, especially say if you do work on campus, you don't have that like 10-minute, 15-minute walk between that you need to go from meeting to meeting. So that's kind of a time that you could actually slow down. And when you're in the virtual world, you could literally go back to back to back to back and barely have a chance to go to the restroom or get a drink of water or something like that. So yeah, that's a really interesting way to think about that, or particularly about like setting a boundary even, because I think the idea of slowing down probably gets lumped in a little bit with mindfulness. So I think that's kind of the big buzzworthy term. So how does it relate to sort of that broader term of mindfulness?
Well, most of us are also operating in fear rather than love, which is one of my favorite things to say. And the fear is also that if we don't do it all now, what if something bad happens again? And we can't travel, we can't go to the grocery store without a mask or whatever. So I think that this whole idea of slowing down and mindfulness and all these buzzwords are literally intended for us to be okay and give ourselves permission to take care of ourselves. And self-care is another buzzword that people just roll their eyes because nobody has time for self-care. And self-care can look and feel like so many different things. The buzzwords are something that people think that they need to grasp and hurry up and get to, like be more mindful, be more still, slow down. And really it creates a lot of anxiety in people because, one, well, how do they do that? And two, they may have a judgment around it. And three, they don't think they deserve or have the time to do it. So today is hopefully going to allow people the opportunity to understand that it's in every breath, it's in every choice, it's in every smile, it's in every movement, and it's in every bite, or whatever they're doing. It doesn't have to be sitting cross-legged with incense, with pants doing chants.
Yeah, I think that anxiety to achieve these things is something I think it gets perpetuated in the way that we talk about self-care and it being an end goal, when in reality it's a process. And it's a never-ending process, really. It's always going to evolve. And I think we kind of heard that in my previous episode with Dean Miller from the College of Social Work. He kind of talked about that as well, about it being this process, and rather than it being something that we achieve and then it's over. We don't ever have to address it again. And that's not the case. It is, like you said, it's in every breath, it's in every bite, and it's kind of every moment of the day. We have to find ways to take care of ourselves, and I think slowing down is one of those ways. And it's really interesting that I asked a question about slowing down, and we talk about speeding up to try to get to that point of slowing down. So it's really this like weird conundrum. So that I'm kind of interested to kind of dive into that a little bit too. So why is it important then to slow down?
Well, I believe that our bodies are probably the first messenger about something that's not in harmony with our life. And of course, our nervous system is affected, and all of the parts of our body are connected. The heart, emotions, compassion, empathy, the ability to tap into the heart, the body, the mind, and the spirit is very difficult when we're constantly in chaos. And like I just said, taking 2 seconds to slow down your eating or walk a little bit slower to your next to-do or meeting is actually giving your brain and your nervous system a message that you're safe, that you're comfortable, that your body does not have to be on high alert. And high alert causes, feelings of anxiety, heart palpitations, clenching, tightening of muscles, fogginess, confusion, racing thoughts. And that's where most people are right now.
The things that you mentioned there were really physiological responses, but also some of those like kind of mental responses as well. And kind of on a lighter note, thinking of the importance of slowing down for me, listeners who have listened to previous episodes will know that I love a good pop reference. So I think about the quote from Ferris Bueller's Day Off when he says, "Life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it." And so I think it's kind of like, again, sort of a fun way to think about the importance of that. And I mean, that movie has been out for quite a long time now. And I still think we're grappling with that idea of slowing down. And the whole premise of that movie really was about him taking this time to skip school or whatever and to slow down. And obviously, I'm not saying you skip school or skip work just to go sing Dankeschön in the streets of Chicago. But I think the overall premise of it, they were really onto something with being able to kind of take a step back and slow down and not miss life and really pass it by because you're worried about the next thing, not the thing that's kind of in front of you, particularly if it is a moment of awe or something like that, or to be able to address those moments that we are uncomfortable with too.
Well, and in our bodies and in our minds too, even if we do pay attention and we see things, if we're seeing them through the lens of fear and negativity and overwhelm, we're not going to see things that are clearly beautiful or clearly an ounce of gratitude. So this slowing down could help everybody see things with more grace, almost like you're seeing things for what they are without judging them, and that is mindfulness, seeing things and being in the present moment without judging it. And you know what? If you do wake up and you need a break and you need to go hiking or whatever, go do that. I mean, we all need to take time for ourselves. So that quote, maybe skipping school or skipping work, I mean, taking the right procedures for it, could actually be the best thing you could possibly do for yourself.
And I mean, that's something that the university has done, even with the 2 well-being days that we get per year, that you can convert from your TDL time into a well-being day. It doesn't have to be for those traditional purposes, like, like a doctor's appointment or something, or being like physically ill. And I think that's a great way to acknowledge that as well. We actually have procedures in place now to allow for those types of things, so you don't feel like you're calling in sick and pulling a Ferris Bueller. But are there any particular emotional states that slowing down has a stronger effect in regulating, or is it kind of just a good general practice for people?
So the whole idea of slowing down, if you think about your day-to-day, the hustle and bustle, most of the things that we do, we don't even think about. We're not even thinking like when we make our coffee or we get in the shower, we get clothes on, we do, all of our routines are so embedded in us that there isn't really a chance in a lot of our lives to make space. So this idea of slowing down is to make space. So if we think about a high level energy, and then a little bit of space, and then what comes after the space. The larger the space between that chaos and the end result gives a person a chance to decide how they really want to respond. So the idea of slowing down is there's no right way or wrong way to slow down. It's knowing and becoming aware of where the chaos and the overwhelm and the intense feelings are. Whatever your space is, your space could be breathing, walking, yoga, having coffee with friends, sleep, and then deciding how you want to choose and how you want to respond next. The way that we can become more aware of it is called the window of tolerance. So if we're hyper aroused, we're feeling fearful, fast breathing, high blood pressure, fight or flight, and then when we're hypo aroused, that's the opposite. We're shut down and we're in survival mode. We're spaced out and we're numb. And in between that is like the space, the window of tolerance, that's what it's called, where we might have a stressful thing and we are able to feel calm, be alert but not anxious, be able to manage our stress, and lean into things that we know soothe us throughout the day, have habits and behaviors that feed us. We feel connected and relaxed. So this can change minute to minute. So this whole idea of slowing down isn't like, oh, you slow down today, good, you're done for the rest of the year. It's every moment. Where am I? Am I hyper or am I numbing out? Or am I just right in the middle? There's this idea in yoga too, they call it the middle way, where we're not overstretched and we're not too lazy, we're right in the middle. So slowing down has also the same kind of 3 levels. It could be an intense slowdown, like a 3-hour retreat or a 3-day vacation out in the woods, or it could be a 3-minute breathing exercise in a break room.
The idea of making space and slowing down, I think this ties really well into the conversation I had with Amy and talking about like that pause in between the stimulus and the response and really tapping into what your feelings are and what those feelings are telling you. And I really like that window of tolerance. There's a couple of things that kind of pop up for me, and I think the description of that window of tolerance, especially that middle area, was resilience. It's pretty much the definition of resilience. But it's interesting too, and I mentioned coaching in the past, and like in athletics or even kind of test taking or anything like that, I've seen bell curves of like the zone of optimal performance. And that's similar. There's kind of like these three major zones. And on the low end, you're really kind of checked out and you don't care. On the high end, you're so worked up that you can't do well. But in that middle section, that's where that bell curve is its highest. You're kind of at a good balance. You're able to perform at your best. And I think that really plays into here. I think it's a very similar concept to the window of tolerance. So I really like that. But I know it's a struggle for people as well, and you've already acknowledged this too, that it is hard. We are getting pulled in so many different directions, and that may be answering part of my question here, but so why is it so hard? Why are we not good at it?
Well, I think that everybody is good at it. It's a matter of, because if they do it, they're good at it. It's a matter of making the time, and actually not even making the time. It's awareness. I mean, I think that so many of us are walking around on that high alert, have no idea that our bodies are telling us, to slow down. And it's just in our nature. It's in our nature to work and rest and enjoy life. We live mostly to work, pay bills, eat, go to sleep. And there's a whole other world out there. And that's what I think people get overwhelmed, because they're working so hard to get to the vacation, to get to the yoga class, to get to the meditation practice. Whereas it's in every second. It's in every moment. And when we don't feel like we're good at something, it's the last thing we're going to do. Most humans, at least. So if we're overwhelmed and we're stretched and we're stressed, the last thing that we're going to do is think about, well, what do we need to be more comfortable and safe and peaceful? It's like, what do we need to numb out? So it's sad to say that, but it's true. And here's the thing. If we could be more kind to ourselves, and if we could be more kind to others about all of our suffering, about all of our struggles, about helping each other slow down, that would help people not feel like they're not good at it. That would help people feel like I belong here where others are slowing down. I'm not selfish because I want to slow down. I'm not lazy because I want to slow down.
Yeah, I recently saw a tweet from Adam Grant, who's an organizational psychologist, and he said, resting is not a waste of time, it's an investment in well-being. Relaxing is not a sign of laziness, it's a source of energy. Breaks are not a distraction, they're a chance to refocus attention. Play is not a frivolous activity, it's a path to connection. And I think that tweet really gets at the core of why this might be so difficult for people as well. Because the first parts of each of those sections there were some of those anxieties or those like challenges or hurdles that get in the way of, mentally, I think, get in the way of slowing down. And that's things like feeling like it could be a waste of time, or being perceived as lazy, or it's a distraction from all the other things that you have going on, or it's just frivolous. It doesn't make sense. It's a kind of out there, that's for other people to do. And I'm not into yoga, so this doesn't apply to me, or something like that. And I think it really kind of based on what you said, it really is a perspective and a mindset shift. And I think this goes back to the growth mindset that we've talked about a couple times and had a full episode on recently as well. And I think it's a good way, even the way that I phrased that question. I asked, why are we not good at it? But I think I could have asked that better and said, why are we not good at this yet? And so I think that's where this next question is going to go. So you've mentioned a couple of ways that people can slow down, but do you have any other suggestions for practices or activities that people could try?
Well, first off, I want to say this. I was in Kroger, and a friend of mine stopped me because she just got this new job. It's a high-level sales job in this huge, huge company. And she's like, oh my gosh, Jackie, do you know what we do before every single meeting? We have like a 5-minute meditation practice. And I thought, wow, how powerful is that? Because right there, people believe that they belong, that it's okay, that the leaders are doing it, that this is what we need to be successful. So I wanted to add that. Okay, what was my question?
Really just, actually that was an answer. With suggestions for practices or activities to try maybe on a personal level. And then let's dive into maybe how we could do those as leaders or managers around campus or just as influencers within our departments.
First off, I think that if every moment, every task, every breath, every conversation, if you can be aware of how you're feeling in the moment and how much you're judging it, because we waste a lot of energy judging people, judging situations. Most of our thoughts, I can't remember the exact number, but most of our thoughts are negative, and most of the things that we think aren't true. So we waste a lot of energy in the day on things that really don't serve us at all. So if we can really focus on the things that we value, that we know are important, like I know in healthcare, the healthcare workers, they don't have a chance to take a break. They're go, 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 go. And if they could take 2 seconds to be kinder to themselves, to take a hand on the heart when they know something's hard, when we're sitting in our office and we get some news that makes us anxious, we honor ourselves for feeling the way that we're feeling, and we take whatever it is, like put out a index card, like what are your 3 things that you need? I know for me, I go outside, I take a walk, I place my hand on my heart and tell myself, like, Jackie, no wonder why you're feeling angry, no wonder why you're feeling whatever it is. You know, like we are the best caretakers for ourselves. So if we're not going to do it, no amount of shopping, yoga classes, gym memberships, all those things are great. They accompany our health. But if we can't do it in the day-to-day, in the moment-to-moment for ourselves, that's where we feel helpless. That's where we get distracted and overwhelmed and anxious. We have to be able to soothe and regulate using our own inner resources to help ourselves every single day.
And I think that's a good point too. You mentioned helping others, and ultimately at the end of the day, it's going to come down to what we can do. We can put policies in place. We can put strategies and things and throw those out there and incorporate them into our days. But ultimately, the decision comes down to you on whether you actually take advantage of those things or whether you do those things. And even if those things aren't available, there are some things that are still within your control to do. And we still, though, need to help each other. And that's been a huge theme of this, of not only just self-care, but also being able to take care of others when we can and when that's appropriate. And I'm sure you hear this quite a bit as a health coach, with that, I'm too busy, or I can't do this, I don't have time to do this, I'm not good at it, anything like that, any of those kind of hurdles that we're putting in our own way sometimes too. How do you respond in that moment? So say we're just speaking with a friend and they say some things like that, and you realize this person could really benefit from slowing down. They're burning the candle at both ends. They need to take a step back, but they haven't quite recognized it themselves yet. what do you say to them in that moment, or how do you kind of broach that topic?
Well, in my coaching, I will normally say, first off, hey, how about we do like a 5-minute breathing exercise? And as soon as we do that, it's like the lights turned on. The awareness is there. It's like the clarity and truth of what they need becomes so clear and okay. If I'm talking to a friend, I mean, my friends, or a friend or somebody knows me, they're already going to say, Jackie, I'm stressed, I have this issue going on, da, da, da. And so they'll just know that I will be asking them questions. Well, if you're too busy, what are you choosing over being still? What are you choosing instead of slowing down? Because we all have the same amount of time in the day. And sometimes you have to be willing to let go of something in order to get something else. Because there's some quote that says, you can't keep doing the same thing and expect a different outcome. Yeah. So, just there is no more time in the day. There's nobody to take away all the stress. It is literally within us to allow whatever it is that we need and do it. I mean, it sounds like, well, that's impossible. Well, it's not impossible, because I could go to Kroger and get fresh flowers on my table, and just that makes me happy. That feels like it resonates in my body. I can walk slower to my car. I can take 3 more breaths. I can dance with my office mate for one song. I mean, it doesn't have to be an hour-long thing. Or it could be like you're reading a devotion, or you have a prayer session, or even our prayer or meditation could be just in our thoughts. If we don't have time to sit and meditate, we could be thinking of, I hope so-and-so feels better. I hope my son or daughter does X, Y, and Z. I'm sending love and care to this person. That's slowing down and being in life, not just going through the motions.
Yeah, in your response to that response to someone else doesn't necessarily have to be a response, I think is what I picked up on that. That moment to sit there and maybe start with, say, a 5-minute meditation, or just sit in silence, is a non-response, but it's a response. You're giving them space. You're being willing to sit there with them and create that ability to slow down in that moment, however small that might be. If it's just a few seconds to breathe and to give them a hug or something. Or it could be, hey, let's go for an hour-long walk or something like that. And to really kind of pull people out of that, because I think it's really difficult to recognize it within yourself on when you need that. And I think that's why we need each other so much too for something like this, because it's much easier for me to sit as a bystander and say, oh, this person's running themselves ragged. They need a break. They need to slow down. They need to add 10 minutes in between these meetings because they're starting to spiral out and they're starting to look like a zombie by the 3rd or 4th meeting in a row. And so I think that just that awareness of each other and to create that space and be willing just to be there with them, I think is a powerful thing to do. So again, it's a response by non-response in some way. You don't have to necessarily say something, or you don't have to fix it for them, or don't have to feel compelled to do those things. Really just give them the opportunity to sit and to take a step back and to find a little more perspective, or to look at it a different way, and just be willing to not say anything potentially. But I think that we've kind of talked about this a couple times now, and mentioning the length of it. How much time do you really need to slow down? Is there like kind of a set limit, or is it case by case basis?
Yeah, I'm sure it's every body, every BODY is different. Every second we need something different. And like I've been saying from the beginning, if we're not aware of it, we have no idea what we need. So I know recently I literally woke up one morning and I said to myself, I have to go hiking today. I just have to. I was just in a place where I knew I needed it. I ripped out a thing of my journal, a page of my journal. I knew I was going to hike. I was going to walk up to the top and write in my journal. Now, it took about 3 hours, the whole thing, the trip, driving there and everything. But when I got in the car afterwards, I thought to myself, wow, that's exactly what I needed. I feel 1,000 times better. And I'm so thankful I knew I needed that. Now, it doesn't have to be a hike for 3 hours, but that's our first step. Our first step is, what do we need? What do I need? That could be your question. And it could be 2 minutes sitting down and breathing. Or like I said, it could be a 2-hour trip out in nature. The idea is to go inward. What does it take to go inward? We have so much information within ourselves, and the less in touch we are with our moments, our feelings, the less in touch we are with what we need. So if you do 5 minutes of breathing, 5 minutes of laughter, 5 minutes of caring for another person, go and get coffee with somebody, or you're out for 3 days on a retreat. Each of us could get the same amount of joy and peace and glad that we did it. So there's no wrong way. That's I guess that's the thing. People want to know, what do I do? Give me the to-do list. Tell me first step, second step, third step. And I guess I do have it. First step is become aware. Second step is know you deserve it. And third is go do it.
Yeah. It's a framework. It's not
or go not do it.
Yeah, it's a framework. It's not a do these specific activities. Take this process, look at it this way to find what is going to work for you. And even your example there of needing to go on the hike and taking your journal, you actually did 2 practices in one in that moment. And journaling is actually a good one. So there's a reason I asked you about all at the beginning of this. And that was something I recently heard on a podcast with The Science of Happiness. And it was kind of on the similar subject. And one of the things that they were talking about as a strategy that you could use was journaling, and specifically journaling about moments of awe. And that, I think, kind of goes back to your point of that awareness piece. It's allowing you to take the time to slow down, to recognize those positive moments that you have, or that awe that you've found, and it's really creating that awareness for you. And like you said, I don't think there is a right or wrong way necessarily to do it. There might be some less helpful versions, because you mentioned numbing out. I think we try to fill that void sometimes. It's like, I'm going to slow down by mindlessly scrolling on Instagram for the next hour and a half. Probably not the best practice necessarily. I guess if you're going into it very intentionally and it is something that actually does fulfill you, by all means, go for it. But I think we get caught in that trap every once in a while, that we find these, and I think Dean Miller in the previous episode mentioned this as well, these pernicious practices or of things that are not so good for us, that we try to use in place of things that are going to be a little bit better for us. So it could be something like journaling, it could be breathing, it could be an intentional meditation, or tapping into your senses. That's one that I've recently been doing with walks. I'm a huge podcast listener too. And so I listen to a lot of podcasts while I'm walking, or books on tape or something like that. And every once in a while it becomes kind of a chore. And I feel like I'm trying to rush through these episodes to listen to the next thing or whatever. And I am mindlessly walking then at that point. And so to try to slow myself down, I've actually been pulling my headphones out, or just hitting pause or something, and trying to tap into those different senses that we have of what am I smelling right now? What am I seeing right now? What am I feeling right now? And just any one of those senses that I can kind of ground myself in and recognize that like there are these other things that are going on around me, and there's this really nice looking flower here, or this person has a really well manicured lawn that I appreciate looking at, or anything like that, where there's a chance just to kind of slow down and recognize, like Ferris Bueller said, I want to stop and look around and not miss it.
Yeah, the slowing down, slowing down is grounding yourself, and you just said it, that's the answer right there. Slowing down is not numbing out to search on, social media and watch TV and alcohol and all those other things that we do to just numb out. It's more about being in the moment, in our bodies, tuning in to our senses and slowing down, and being okay with silence and alone. Alone, just tuning into your, what you really need. And it's very difficult because a lot of things come up, good, bad, and ugly.
Yeah, it's scary.
Yeah,
it's scary to think about doing
It
that.
is. But you know what is so powerful and freeing when you can honor yourself for where you are and what you're feeling and what you're going through. And nurturing yourself through these practices of grounding.
Yeah, so I think that's a kind of a great stopping point on that. So for those looking to learn more about slowing down, what are some tools or resources that you recommend for maybe diving a little deeper?
Well, I know we have a Koru retreat, which I would say every single human in the whole wide world needs it. It's December 11th. It's a Saturday from 9 to 12, and it's going to be virtual. And the beauty of that is that, you can be in your home in a super comfortable space, and it's free, and it's a Saturday, and it's right before the holidays, and this could be your gift to yourself. This could be your initiation to slowing down, if only you could do one Saturday to get it started.
There you go. Gift yourself this holiday season with a chance to slow down. You don't have to buy yourself something.
That's right.
Gift yourself a chance to, in a moment, to slow down. And something else we're actually going to do as part of this episode, we're going to release a bonus companion episode to this, and it'll be just a short meditation around slowing down and kind of tapping in and grounding ourselves. So be on the lookout for that as well. We'll release that shortly after this episode releases, so that it's something you can come back to as well, and give yourself a moment if you need kind of a kickstart and to figure out how to approach this, or again, just to give yourself a couple of moments just to breathe. We're going to help you out with that process too. So since your interview as well, I've been asking a guest a song they relate to or use for their own resilience. So what is your go-to song?
This has been on repeat for like 2 weeks straight. It's called Banks by Need to Breathe. And the way that I interpret the song is that we're like sitting, the banks protecting you but not holding you back, so letting the river flow. And I love that idea because there's a lot of meditation practices where you're sitting on a bank and you're watching the water flow by. You're watching your thoughts and feelings flow by, but you're not hooked to it. And it also in the song talks about how there's so much negativity around ourselves, like we judge ourselves, and it, instead of, letting yourself flourish and keep on going, sometimes we feel like we're just sitting on the bank watching life go by. And I love all the words to it. I like the beat to it and everything. And I love, like, as soon as my daughter gets in the car, she puts it on and we just jam to it. So it's a good song. Yeah. Listen to it.
I think my sister actually went and saw them in concert just a couple of weeks ago. So
whoa, that's awesome.
That's funny you brought that up. But yeah, I'll add that to our Wildly Resilient playlist that you can find on Spotify, and I'll also link in the show notes. So finally, what's that one wrap-up message that you hope listeners take away from this conversation?
Oh, what I wish everybody would take away from this is to just, if you could take 2 minutes and breathe, and just imagine yourself falling into a hammock of grace for everything that you're doing in life, every good thing, every good, skill, every good characteristic, every good and loving thing that you do every day that may go unnoticed. Take time for yourself and fall into that hammock of grace, of comfort and stillness, and see what happens, Daydream in the hammock of grace, and whatever comes of it, that's exactly what you need. There's no wrong answer.
I'm a big fan of hammocks, so I love that. I love that visual of daydreaming in a hammock of grace. That's a very good Sunday afternoon activity when the weather's really nice, and it's always fun to walk around campus and see all the hammocks that are out now, and how that's become such a big thing. So maybe a little time in the hammock is another opportunity to slow down.
Yeah.
And maybe daydreaming is not so bad.
Right. Yeah.
It gets chastised a little bit when you're younger, but maybe we need a little bit more of that. Well, I appreciate you coming on and sharing your knowledge with us.
Thank you so much. I was so happy to come back.
That'll do it for this episode of Becoming Wildly Resilient. I encourage you to hit pause and answer a couple questions for yourself. What are you choosing over being still? Identify one time you could intentionally slow down this week. The other is, what's a moment you've experienced all recently? If you have a pen and paper nearby, try writing it down and then check in with how you feel. And speaking of all, I mentioned my recent return from paternity leave. Supporting my wife as she gave birth to our child was an extraordinary moment of awe for me. On top of that, the compassion and care we encountered from numerous staff in UK Healthcare's labor and delivery and NICU units was outstanding and certainly didn't go unnoticed. I really wish that I could list everyone. I also want to thank our work families from HR Health and Wellness and the College of Communication and Information for all their support throughout this process. We're truly grateful. And this was a wonderful reminder of how remarkable our people are at the University of Kentucky. With that, if you have any feedback for how we can better support our people, have suggestions for future episode topics, or know someone at UK that would maybe make a good guest, then reach out to us by email at healthandwellness@uky.edu. And as usual, in the show notes you can find links to anything we mentioned throughout the episode, plus the HR events calendar to see what's coming up. Until next time, take care of yourself and others, and stay well. Thanks for listening to Becoming Wildly Resilient, a podcast series from University of Kentucky Human Resources, Health and Wellness. The UK HR Health and Wellness team, consisting of certified health coaches, fitness experts, registered dietitians, and wellness specialists, offer a wide range of online and in-person programming to University of Kentucky employees, retirees, and their spouses. If you enjoyed this episode, you can listen and subscribe to future episodes wherever you find your podcasts. Connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram by searching @UKY Wellness. There, you'll find links to episode show notes and more. You can also email healthandwellness@uky.edu with any questions or suggestions for future episode topics. To learn more about well-being benefits offered by University of Kentucky Human Resources, visit www.uky.edu/HR/wellbeing. Live well.